This is lesson 1, part 2. Again, with the school closure for COVID-19, we will continue our learning through these videos. These videos are supplemental lessons that will not be graded or take the place of classroom assignments. These are merely supplemental lessons for students to continue their learning during school closure. So this is part 2 of the lesson 1, which we went over writing happy/uplifting song. For this lesson, we're going to compose another happy/uplifting song. Before we continue, let's review some basic understandings of music theory of happy/uplifting song. As for the theory, many people think that major means happy and minor means sad. This is generally because of the relation to major and minor chords, which have a very different mood to them. Major thirds, which are bases for major chords, sound happy and bright, and minor thirds, which are the bases for minor chords, sound dark and sad. This is impression people usually get when they listen to an interval or chords alone. When chords line up to make up a song, the mood of the song is produced not from individual chords, but by tension and release made by chord sequences. So in the last video, we actually composed a song with samples that we individually recorded, and but this time we're going to be using tools that are already here, and we will be constructing more of like a finished song rather than just kind of like loops and types of things. So let's go ahead and get started. I have arranged some chords here. Last time we started with drums, so this time we're gonna continue doing so, but at the same time we're going to let the melody take the lead of this whole entire process. I'm using a Rode instrument here to make the chords, and sounds like this. So that's basically the loop that we're going to be using as far as melodic sense. I filled in some extra ones here by random, but for the most part, we're going to be basically making the whole beat. Excuse me. We're basically going to be making a whole beat from scratch. So let's get started. I have loaded some drum samples here and some other melodic contents to help our beat and get the flow going. So I will start with some kicks. What you can do sometimes is, even though some people start with kicks and snares first, you can also, like I said, let the melody take the drive of the whole entire beat making session and just apply some drums with it. So let's go ahead and put some kicks in there. Oh, and also make sure when you're starting, just overall, just turn the volume down so it doesn't peak over here or it just goes wild. A little bit easier for your ears, and sometimes you can't just always listen to everything just blasting loud. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue. We're on 180 BPM, which is 90 BPM on halftime. So this is more of like still a really faster groove, so that we actually have the happy and like uplifting type of vibe. So when you're using drum samples like this, obviously there's a long tail, and there's more of details of like the room and the dimension of the snare. But in this instance, I just really want like that quick snare, and so I'm going to just go ahead and draw the fades in like this, keep it small. All right, so I have the most basic kick and snare patterns here, and I enjoy this part for now, and I want to actually create on more of this, just the 8 bars here, and the actual command to just duplicate this instead of just copying and overwriting this is on Windows. It's Control Shift D, so it duplicates the whole entire thing over, so you don't actually have to just rewrite the whole entire thing. So now we have 16 bars of the melodic and all the things that we're going to be using here. Let's go ahead and continue. So with the little bit more complex kick patterns and snare patterns, I have some sort of like this awesome groove that's going on as I fill more in, and create more of like an uplifting pattern. It now the track overall already sounds energetic, and as far as the mood goes, because the beat is so fast and because the patterns are so frequently happening, it just automatically sounds like it's uplifting. Okay, now let's continue with adding some more cymbals or some percussions in there. I'm going to go ahead and just fill in some patterns here, and I'll describe more of the details later on. Just like the last video, I'm actually reducing the volume of this second hi-hat, even though it's the same exact pattern. Just lowering the volume, it also gives like this driving and like kind of imitates of as if it's like a different cymbal. That's a pretty decent 16 bar of drum loops and some melody going on already. I think this is about, I think we took about less than 10 minutes here to construct this so far. That's a pretty good progress. Let's go ahead and continue with what we have here. In fact, let's go ahead and duplicate this whole entire thing and create another 16 bar, because I believe that this whole entire thing is already a huge chunk of the song. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate. Okay, now I'm just gonna go ahead and explain what I did here. So 8 bar of the loop is, imagine if this is like the basic main part of the song. It starts to drive and it goes 8 bars, and as 8 bars goes on, there's another element coming out. In this case, it's just the shakers, these two shakers right here, adding on top of this groove. Sometimes people tend to add a little too much, and it becomes a little bit too, it becomes a little too busy, kind of hard to grasp on. And the way to actually eliminate those issues is to add just minimalistic amounts of additional things. So I'm gonna go ahead and add. I think let's go ahead and back to what we have so far. I kind of forgot. All right, that sounds pretty awesome so far. Um, Sometimes you end up struggling with just 8 bars and just making it sound more refreshing than what it actually is. In order to compensate those ideas and to replace those types of obstacles, is to add more of like drum elements that indicate a whole different pattern coming up, such as crash. I believe crash kind of gives like a good reminder for the audience, like here comes this whatever, depending on how many times they put it inside a pattern. So for this instance, I'll go ahead and add on every single 8 measures. I believe this kind of helps to be basic and easy to understand. So let's go ahead and just use this one. Also, what you can do is, because this crash symbol is going down like this, we can also make like an additional thing, which is the reverse. So you would go ahead and select the amount of the crash that you want. That's going to be reversed. Paste it wherever you wish to be. And then to reverse this sample, you press R, and it should just flip like this. And let's hear what that sounds like. Cool, that sounds pretty good for what I want it to be. I do believe the warping is a little bit off, so yeah, there we go. So let's go ahead and change this to Complex Pro. Again, Complex Pro allows the sound to be very original and doesn't degrade the quality at all. So I think Complex Pro is by far the best one to use for any elements regarding to how far you want to stretch it and such. Now let's listen to it back. Okay, now that uh, we have most of the everything here, what we're going to do is add some variation to every single 8 bars or 16 bars, just to add some more of like lively groove and to add some difference to it. Doesn't really take much, really. The misunderstanding some people have is that they think they need to add more into it. In fact, that's actually the wrong idea, in my opinion, because I think the difference is that once you get rid of all of the additional things that are similar to 8 patterns to another, you can get rid of them, and some of the ones that are sticking together still and like have more of like the amount of patterns happening that just tend to stick out a little more. So what I will go ahead and do is listen back to my track and eliminate some of these to free up some drum spaces and maybe create some tensions with it. Okay, I think that'll do for now. We're going to go ahead and just copy and paste this. So now it looks a little bit more different than what we originally had here. The point is that this 16 bars is a little bit more minimalistic compared to the rest of the 16 bar that comes after it. Now what I'm going to do is layer some of these drums and make them a little bit more than just bland samples, drag and drop, and it'll show more details and like characters to the drum elements. Most of the time, what I'm doing here is just copy and pasting most of these. As you can see, I'm just pressing Control C to copy and Control V to paste. And rest of the things, I'm just pressing copy and paste on anything that's not exactly there just yet. All right, I think we have some kick layers here. Let's hear what that sounds like quickly. It's not too crazy, but at the same time, it did add a little bit of the low end to the kick. Let's go ahead and do the same for the snare here. As you can hear, this quick clap or a snare sounds pretty good with this additional snare. But what I did was, because I enjoyed the transience of this snare, I got rid of this one, meaning the transients is the beginning of the sound, and when there's two of them happening at once, it just the sounds tend to just phase out, and just basically in theory, basic theory, it's basically canceling it out, and so it doesn't sound as great. So I'm going to just do the little fade in the beginning for the second snare and let the first snare come through a little more. Now, let's go ahead and duplicate all these and hear what they sound like after. Okay, I think that sounds pretty good so far, and let's add a little bit more percussions. I think that we have some to use here. Let's see what kind of patterns we come up with. Sounds pretty good so far with those percussions in there. I have just kind of quickly filled out what I think it sounds good so far. Overall, it sounds pretty decent, but on the later run and the longer run, I probably will get most of these. I'll probably get eliminate most of these just to make more room for melodic sounds and more other sounds to come. So moving on, let's go ahead and conclude that as the drum part of this session. Um, let's go ahead and play around with the acoustic piano, or actually the Rode piano. That's actually called, named that one. It's actually Rode. So don't pay attention to the name here. In fact, I'll just change it to Rode, just so we don't get confused here. Oh yeah, actually, I'm just going to consolidate all of these. The hotkey to do that is Command or Control J. Awesome. So here we have the whole entire road here. I'm gonna just go ahead and play around with it. Just to make it more interesting and for the visual purpose of it, I'm going to add just additional notes here to see where it goes. Awesome. So this melodic content so far is great. I actually just added a very minor detail because I want to save the more room for other melodic contents. So I'm gonna go ahead and load in some more here. I have prepped up some melodic samples here. So let's go ahead and preview what they sound like. Oh, cool. That's some sample that I grabbed online. I think it sounds really well fitting with this road. So I'm going to go ahead and load it in. Let's go ahead and hear that along with the road. Okay, some part of the vocals actually do fit together. I think this fits with this first part and this fits with the second chord here. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a new fresh track and insert the first vocal chord here. Cool. I got those cool vocal chords. That's gonna be going along with Road. Now let's hear what that sounds like together. I'm just gonna quickly copy and paste here. All right. Let's just hear what this 8-bar sounds like so far. Awesome. Unfortunately, in the beginning of we're going to consider this whole entire 32 measures of 32 bars as like a whole entire chunk of drop here. And in the beginning of the drop, usually things should be very minimalistic here. So I'm going to drag this whole entire 8 bars of vocals into the second part. Great, great. I think that sounds really, really awesome and happy and uplifting. It's it's right where we want it. So on top of this, I think we can see another melodic content being on top. So let's go ahead and preview some other things that may complement rest of these things. I like the first few notes here. I'm going to dissect this whole entire sample and just rip out some of the sound notes that I want. I think that's these 3 notes that go do do do. Yeah, that's great. What we can do here is go into the sample and stretch out some more. Um, we can use this. This is called the warp marker, and when you click on it, it won't exactly turn on, but when you double click it, it turns on. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this to the beginning of it because that's where the sample starts. So I'm going to do that. Now we should have like a one clear note here. All right, I think we're going to use these three notes here and see what happens with it. We're going to add some more audio effects to it, but let's go ahead and put the placements here first. Okay, I think these lead and plucks sound very, oh, actually, it's like a little ARP. I think it sounds very complimenting to rest of these. But at the same time, the sound sounds really dry, so what we're going to do is add some audio effects to it. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. I tend to, I could envision this having more dimensions, so I'm going to apply reverb. You can either click the track and double click reverb, or you can just go ahead and drag and drop in there. I'm going to play around with some of these settings and basically go around and see what we can do here. But before I do so, I'm going to explain to you the most basic functions that you can use on Reverb to add more details and add more dimensions. Dry wet knob shows how much of the percentage of the audio effects is going to affect the sound, and decay time basically shows you that when the sound decays, it shows you how long it goes for, and the size is like the room size of how big you want the reverb to be. And some of these input processings, you can play around with it. For this instance, this is high cut, but at the same time I want the high of this reverb, so I'm just actually going to low cut, bring it up a little bit and just leave it there. Diffuse, pretty good. Lower the lows because we don't really need that. Now let's go ahead and play around. I'm going to play around with the decay time and dry and wet knob here to enhance the sound a little bit. At times you can be very drastic with the dry and wet knob here, but in this instance I just want like a very tiny amount because I like the dry signal of this ARP, but at the same time I just want a teeny bit of reverb to fill in the whole entire gap. I think what can also compensate this whole entire sound is maybe like the delay. Let's just go ahead and see what this. Let's go ahead and play around with what this would affect the sound like. This ping pong effect is really awesome. I don't know many other plugins on other programs that may come with this feature, but specifically Ableton on their delay, there's just like a regular delay and also the ping pong. I personally think that this ping pong effect adds way more details than just the regular delay because now it just sounds like this with regular delay, which is good. I like that. But with the ping pong on, it just adds more details. It's like the delay signal is being sent and then hits the wall and bounces back. I think it sounds pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and hear overall of what we have so far. All right. Awesome. Sounding good. Sounding good. Here, let's go ahead and see what we got so far. So we filled the drums in, added percussions, added melodies here, some more additional details. The next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and add the bass to it. For this instance, I'm just going to be using like some real basic bass line here. My personal favorite so far have been the hip hop one on the instrument rack here. So I'm going to make a new MIDI track, which you can do with Control Shift T, or on Mac instance, it's Option Shift T. Let's go ahead and either you can drag and drop or double click it. Now I'm going to play with my keys and let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like. For those of you who are listening to on like a simple mobile device, you probably can't hear. You probably need to listen to it on either your headphones or like your speakers. But I'll go ahead and play like the higher notes just so maybe you can hear it, and then just go ahead and move it down to the sub octave that I want it to be. All right, I think I got something here. Let's go ahead and create this MIDI clip with Control Shift M. The notes that I'll be using is, oh, where'd it go? Where is it? It's B and E. So just to keep it simple, just two notes, that will be great. We're just gonna go ahead and double click the note to draw it in. And then to duplicate another note, it's Control D, and then we're gonna drag this down to the E note right here. Oh, yep, and then drag it here. And I want to shorten these notes, but at the same time, these both sound bars are at the same length. So I'm gonna Control A to select all of them, and then reduce the size like this. And let's hear what it sounds like now. Okay, why don't we just go ahead and add some movements of this one being like a higher octave and the next 8 bars can be lower octave. Let's go ahead and copy and paste here, and let's go ahead and select all and hit shift, and on the down arrow key when you press it, it goes octave lower. So as you see on the screen, it's B1 and E1 right now. Let's go ahead and put it octave lower. It's B0 and E0 now. Now let's hear back what that sounds like. Sounds pretty happy so far. Okay, now I'm just gonna. This is pretty good. I think I'm going to be using this more as like a build up to this whole entire beat so far. Now I'm just gonna replace this whole entire thing here. Let's go ahead and put this here. Let's go ahead and give this nice sub bass. It's a warm tone. It's pretty nice. Oh yeah, before we go on, let's go ahead and sidechain this sub bass so that it's adding movements from the kicks to the hip hop bass here. Before we do that, let's go ahead and group these together. I'm gonna rename these by hitting Control R to rename it. So this is kick 1, and let's name this second one kick 2. Press Enter. Highlight both of these by hitting a Shift and then Shift and then select all these, and Control G to group them together. Now this is the kick. To rename it, it's Control R again. Now let's call this kicks. Perfect. Now we have this kick drum here, and we're going to be using this sidechain signal to sidechain this hip hop here. In order to do that, we're going to the Audio Effects tab, and we're going to add compressor in there. Okay, now once we do so, there's this little arrow button, and once you hit that, now we have this sidechain capability. So hit the sidechain and audio from. And earlier we mentioned we want the signal from the kick to be affecting this bass line. So the audio from kicks, you can either individually choose one or two or choose both. For now, we're going to choose both of them for now. And this, as soon as I start playing the audio, there should be signals coming through. And in order to start affecting it more, I need to bring down the threshold. And I will start to get some more gain reduction here and get some signals. For the visual aspects of it, there are these different modes. I'm going to be using this third one just to give you the sidechain compression signals. I'm going to go ahead and start the track and start to play around with it, and you can see the visuals. All right, so it sounds pretty good. As you see here, some of the dips were a little bit too much, so it's making the sub bass come back. It ducks and then comes back a little bit too slow. And in order to fix that, it's this release that you need to use in order for the sound to go back really quick. And attack should be pretty quick as well. I believe that having it quicker just kind of makes the sidechain compression happen a little bit quicker. And with the quick release, it's also going to be done with the sidechaining quicker. So now let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like. Let's go ahead and move on now. I'm gonna go ahead and organize these tracks right here, and I'll just go ahead and play this track one more time. Arrangements. Now that we have the whole entire track, or the whole entire chunk of the track, we're going to build an intro and a build, and like this passage so that this whole entire chunk could be displayed as the main idea. So let's go ahead and select all of these and move them back a little. And we're going to make this an intro. And we're going to make this a build. I think we can just keep it a little bit shorter just for the sake of giving it educational wise and not trying to make like a commercial music here. So let's see what kind of melodies we can try to use in the intro and the build here. All right. I think because the main drive of this song are these roads. Oops, completely misspelled it. It's spelled RHODE. That's pretty silly of me. Okay, so now that we have this melody happening, we're going to add some drum elements to add this a little bit of more like a build type of drive and give it more progressive feel to it. Oh, and if you would like to add drum elements to the build, simply what you should do is take like maybe like the 4 bar of the drums and then just start to introduce it more, because the idea is that you want the audience to know what is coming up ahead, and if there are drum elements that are going to be introduced a little before the drop, it's definitely going to give the audience a notice that, hey, here comes the whole entire drop and this is building up. So that's the indication, and let's go ahead and keep going. Now I'm gonna try to use this crash because oh, here it is. Here's something that we already made here. Because it's like a reverse symbol, it just kind of gives the audio sound effect to it so that it just builds up and eases into the drop. Okay, so I think I have some other effects to complement the intro and the build. You want to basically paint the whole picture with your song here, and some of the things you can use are definitely like effects. So let's go ahead and preview some of these that I have. So these are some vinyl crackle effect that I can add. Let's go ahead and just place them here. I think it'll sound pretty great with it together. And here's some really nice nature sound. Because it is a happy and uplifting vibe, I really think that like this sound effect, you know, like the birds chirping and nature outside, definitely gives that visual effect of it because of the sound. I'm gonna make a new track here and drag that in there. Definitely feels like we're out at the park with the sun out type of thing, you know. And it builds up. All right, so we're not going to stop there. We're going to make this a little bit more like a build. I think this will definitely complement this uprising reverse crash. So let's go ahead and put that in there. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and put it in like a sound effect, its own category here. Boom. It's got its own track. Once again, you can kind of use like reverb to put it inside any of the effects and make it sound more interesting as well. Oh yeah, that sounds great. I think it probably goes along with the vocals here. Let's go and speed that up here. Double click, times that, and then put on Complex Pro. Now let's hear what it sounds like with this right here. Essentially what we're going to use now is, because, okay, here, let's go ahead and add this in here. Drop. And then now we need a break. So what breaks does is that from the drop, now we're going to get tired at some point and we need the song to just kind of let loose for a little bit, and so that's where we're going to use the breaks here. So let's go ahead and add the vocals here along with the melodies. Let's try to edit some of these here. I think we can definitely just use this part. So 4-bar loop will do. I think it's great for it because we're just not going to stay on the break for too long. Now let's hear what it sounds like together. Nice, that little ARP there sounds pretty cool together. For now, we're just going to put this aside and we're going to keep using this. But before we do so, we're going to go ahead and add the drums. Actually, that's one other thing. Yep. Here we go. Drop into the break. And here comes the break. Oh, I know why it sounds a little odd here, so I think it's a sub bass that needs to be changed. Okay, so I think these are the notes that need to be played. Let's go ahead and transposition this down like 2 octaves. Okay, before I finish this whole entire beat and conclude this lesson, I'm going to finally polish the whole entire track with more audio effects and bring out the goodness and like the creativity within the track just by giving it a nice flow and additional dimensions and audio effects. So let's get to that, and I'm gonna apply some reverbs and some auto filter movements with the audio. Let's go ahead and go in the Rhodes here. All right, and I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly EQ this drum overall. I think doing it individually is just gonna take a little bit more time, so I'm just gonna go ahead and throw the EQ8 in there. You know what? My brain is telling me I'm a little picky about this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just individually EQ these. So with the kicks, you don't want too much of it, and you maybe want I don't know, maybe 40 hertz. That's pretty good enough. Another cool way to do it is to bring it up and start listening to it back. Bring it down like this and see what sounds good for you. So it sounds good here, and I'm just going to actually, yeah, let's just go ahead and do that and add another one to the snares. See what that sounds like. Anything below that is just something that you really don't need. So let's go ahead and do that with the crasher. It's kind of missing, so we're just going to boost it a little bit. See. These symbols, I'll just generally just group them all together and just call those symbols. All right. Do the same thing. Get rid of the low end, listen to it, and see what sounds good. So for me, it sounds good right there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and compress all these together now that we have the drums together. Throw in a compressor here. Actually, you know what? Let's go and use a glue compressor. Glue compressor comes with Ableton, and I think it's sounds really great together. Don't give it too much, just a little bit. Maybe back off a little bit, you know? Let's go ahead and add a limiter there so it doesn't peak too much. Turn it down on the volume knob here. Now let's go ahead and quickly do a mix down on these melodies as well. Let's go ahead and add EQ8. Sounds good there. Glue compress this together. I'm gonna turn on the soft because I want this whole entire thing to be a little bit more softer. So that's pretty good there. Maybe add some limiter here. So we have the roads. Maybe we can just quickly just copy and paste this to the ARP because now we're just kind of running out of time here. All right. Sounds good there for that. All right. There's just some levels here. Oh yeah, I forgot about this vocal. I like the low end there. Bring it out a little bit. Let's go ahead and glue compress it together. Don't want it too loud, so. And what we can do is Some of the drums are not coming through as loud as I want it to be. That's because there are other things happening around the same frequency as the drums are playing. And what we did with the hip hop bass earlier, we're just going to copy and paste this compression that's happening. We're going to put it on the melody, and we're going to copy and paste another one, and we're going to sidechain the snare part. So let's see what that sounds like now. Back it off a little bit, you know. All right, that sounds good. Let's go ahead and apply these two other ones, like this vocal. Oh, okay, never mind. Because it's already on melodies as a group, it's going to be affecting all of these sounds. All right, now let's go ahead and hear what this full track sounds like now. Idea, high school going down. Hey. Awesome. Woo. Alright, so I have concluded to make a whole track based on the mood of happy and uplifting. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. There will be some questions that you should be answering within the worksheet, so go ahead and do those. Anything else music related and questions about Ableton, you're more than welcome to email me if you'd like to. If anything you want to ask and talk about, we can totally do that. Otherwise, this ends up and sums up the portion of this lesson, lesson 1, part 2. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.